financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is how to fight the tax man. Brian Small.
Ken Gross, how are you?
Very well, thank you. You?
I am excellent today.
So glad to hear that.
I
Jeffrey
love
Linden.
fighting the tax man.
Jeffrey Linden, cutting
Morning,
Brian
Ken.
off already. This is your show today. Tax man
show.
is at issue. You're the tax man.
Bring
but
it.
you're not the one. You're not the one that we're going to
fighting.
fight.
Right.
You're the one who
Doing
is
the
going to
fighting.
do the fighting.
That's right.
We'll pretend Brian's the tax man.
Good.
Hey, good. Give me money. Give me money. Give me money. Give me money.
All right, good job. Good job. Like that. Okay, let's get to the topic. Two tax problems. Personal problems, business problems. Case study. Jack and Sarah. Jack owns lawn and snow service. On a personal side, Jack and Sarah owe income taxes, 2015 and 16, $15,000 and $17,000. They had paid their taxes in 17 and 18. They owe $20,000 for 2019. And in 2020, they have paid no estimates. On the business side, Jack's Lawn and Snow Service, which is a corporation, he has payroll tax liabilities from 2019 and this year, 2020, $35,000 and $22,000 respectively. Now, first question, what are payroll taxes? We all know what income taxes are. What are payroll taxes?
Payroll taxes are the taxes that the employer pays. Typically, it's the withholding if you get a paycheck and you get taxes taken out. It's your federal income tax that's withheld. It's your FICA or Social Security tax, and it's the Medicare portion.
Okay, so when I'm an employee and I get my paycheck, every paycheck,
The government steals some of it.
some of my check goes to federal withholding, some goes to state withholding as a payment by me in advance of my tax obligation.
Actually, most people think too much of it goes.
Well,
to the
that's
government.
determined by the charts. In addition, I have to contribute my Social Security payment on up to like my first $120,000 worth of income.
137.5.
It's 6.5%. And I also have to pay in Medicare, 1.45%.
Unless you make too much money, in which case then you have to pay an additional penalty on Medicare.
Okay, but that's the payroll tax. There's another component to payroll tax that what's withheld from your check, your employer also has to match. He has to match the FICA and Medicare payments. That's why when you're self-employed, your self-employment tax rate is 13.35% because you have to pay into the government both sides of the equation.
You also
So-
have to pay in both sides of the Medicare. So it works out.
When I say payroll taxes, that includes the
So I thought it
Medicare.
was about 15.2, but okay. It's
Try
still too much.
13.35.
It's still too much.
It is, well, this isn't a political policy statement. What we're
it's
talking
my
about
statement.
is, do we have a bouncer? Is Jerry the bartender here, or was that a different week?
We need the fax man
All right,
for
let's
the
go.
tax man.
Okay.
Just the
So-
fax man.
We understand your position on tax policy. Okay, and if you become the next president of the United States,
Unlikely to happen.
and you have a Congress that will support you
Unlikely
on a
to
House
happen.
and a Senate, then you can implement whatever changes you would like.
Okay.
Meanwhile,
But for now, back to Jack and Sarah and Jack's Lawn and Snow Service. He owes for 19 and 20 $57,000 in payroll taxes. He hasn't made those contributions. The money that was withheld from his employees plus his matching contribution has not been paid to the government. That's the payroll taxes. Now, What happens when you don't pay your payroll taxes?
Well, you get letters and occasionally a knock on the door, but you owe the liability. And what a lot of people don't realize is because your payroll taxes are both the employer side that we just talked about and the part that's withheld from the employee's side. The part that is withheld from your employee's paycheck, the boss is holding in trust for the employee to pay to the government. So if you don't pay those, you're basically, from the IRS's standpoint, stealing the IRS's money from
Or
your
stealing
employees.
your employees.
Right. Well, they think it's theirs.
And the result is?
You can be personally liable for that portion of the tax.
So
Yeah,
let me
but wait,
put it-
isn't it beyond that though? You, as the owner of the business, you can be personally liable, but can't they also make, say, your office manager who's in charge of paying the bills
It can be-
personally liable?
Anybody who writes the checks or has the decision on who to pay and not pay can be held personally liable.
You can be assessed, and they call that the trust fund penalty. Now, just to put it in perspective, if you're incorporated, you're generally not liable for the debts of the company, and this is a company debt. You end up you have the trust fund penalty imposed on you personally by the government because of what Jeff says, you're violating that trust by not turning that employee's money over. So when they impose the trust fund penalty on you, it's only on the money withheld from the employee. It doesn't apply to the employer's matching contribution. That's at the federal payroll taxes. If you don't pay over the state withholding tax or state sales tax, and you're a principal officer of the company, the state will still assess you personally, just so you know. So
Right.
There's no getting out of payroll taxes. Now, are payroll taxes dischargeable in bankruptcy?
No.
And
End
the
of
reason is for exactly what we're talking about here, because it's a violation of a trust.
Right.
Okay. What about income taxes?
Yes, income taxes can be discharged, but there's rules associated with that discharge.
All right, hold on the rules, and we'll get
Always
to them
rules.
a little bit down the road. I want to hit on one topic first.
Yeah.
What do you do to resolve a payroll tax problem when you're an employer? Let me tell you what the first thing is. When Jeff goes, or I go, or Brian goes, and we have to deal with the IRS collection person, they want to see that the blood has stopped flowing. What do I mean by that?
Got to make the taxpayer compliant. They have to start paying their taxes moving forward, otherwise they're out of luck.
We'll take a break, we'll expand on that a little bit, and then we'll start figuring out how to solve the problems. COVID-19 presents a fight for our personal and business financial survival. You have to make choices. Cash is critical. Do you tap your retirement, home equity line, or run up the credit cards? You need the right plan to avoid being wiped out, and you need it now. You can't rely on the government or banks. Call us. We're the experts in financial crisis. We were here for you and your business in the Great Recession, and we're here for you now. We will create a plan and get through this together. THAV GROSS will solve your problem.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
I love you too. Bye-bye. That was Jerry. Emma just said her first word.
Oh,
Jerry says hello and they'll be over soon.
who's Jerry? Is he a friend of yours?
No. This Jerry. Our Jerry. And this is his wife and their little girl.
You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled.
Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
Brian, I have to compliment you. Many times in the course of the Law and Reality show, I'm hoping for you to come up with a short, concise response to a question on an issue so I can cover the other material.
Short and concise, unlike this commentary from you at the moment.
This last moment ago, when I said how to resolve the payroll tax problem and becoming compliant, you did that. But this is one of the rare circumstances where I wasn't looking for that. I'm looking for a more detailed explanation. So, when you said compliant, what exactly do you mean?
Okay, so if you start off with the premise that the taxpayer...
Now you're going to punish me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The taxpayer has not been
You
compliant.
opened that door so
They
wide.
have not been filing the returns on time or not filing them at all. They have not been sending the money that they've withheld from the employees'
So they're not
checks.
So that's what you mean by being a bad boy, not compliant?
Non-compliant. That's
Okay.
exactly what it means. You have to start with the theory that if the company is going to be saved and continue to operate, the company must start to do things correctly. They must file the returns. They must pay the taxes over. And they must do everything right from day one going forward so that you can say to this revenue officer who you're working with, see, we're doing things correctly now. Don't close us down.
Right. It's a three-word solution. File and pay.
And here, put it in. Let me give you
I like that. That was short and concise.
I like that one. A shared perspective. The revenue officer has a job to do. His job, and he has bosses. He has a manager he has to report to. If he's working with your client to resolve the payroll tax problem, and the client continues to not make the deposits, his manager then goes and reviews the report and the status of the file, and he says to him, Joe, you're working on the payroll taxes on XYZ company, and they're still not making their deposits. What are you doing? Our goal is to solve the problem, not continue it. You're not doing your job. So the revenue officer, you have to make that guy look good. And how do you make him look good? You become compliant. Now, is that easy to do?
It depends, but usually, yeah. I mean, you have to have the cash flow to make your payments.
And if you don't have the cash flow?
Then you have more problems, and we have to get into. There's a difference between your ongoing cash flow, your ongoing payroll, and then catching up on what you haven't paid and owe. So you need to have if you don't have the cash flow to make your payroll tax payments going forward, you've got other problems.
Well, here's what I often see with these businesses.
You may not want to be in business.
Yeah, right. What I see is businesses will come in and when we look at their cash flow, what they've done is they've borrowed from Uncle Sam in order to pay
suppliers,
other debts of the business. And the reality is that if they weren't borrowing from their uncle, they were just paying their uncle, they could still operate. They're just not necessarily going to be able to pay the corporate debt. Well, that's a possibility of looking at a small business Chapter 11 to reorganize and restructure and pay who you need to pay. We're not talking about that today in great detail, but I just want people to understand that one of the solutions could be the Chapter 11 concept of bankruptcy for the business.
It's a whole.
As long as the business can afford to pay its current obligations,
Right.
including its payroll taxes and its payroll and its rent and its utilities, if it's short on paying the old debt, that's where that small business chapter 11
Subchapter
works.
11, subchapter 5 of
Works
chapter 11.
perfect.
One of the
perfectly.
first things we'll do is figure out and have the hard talk is, should you continue the business?
All right, so let's suppose you have the person, they're able to make their current depositories, they're doing what you want. How do you then get them a payment plan?
So the first thing that's going to happen, and the thresholds are similar in personal and payroll taxes, but payroll taxes, the thresholds are lower before you have to do it. You have to do what's called a collection information statement for the IRS. It's a multi-segment form, basically disgorging financial information, expenses, bank account statements.
You're giving them your financial statement and your financial information. You don't want to tell them who your accounts are, though, do you?
Your customer accounts?
Yeah, you don't,
No.
because they'll go and grab the money.
They'll go intercept the money between you. We had cases where, unfortunately, they didn't call us till after, but we got the call because the IRS levied or seized the payments coming from the credit card processor of the customer.
Here's where it gets sticky.
But that's also where a chapter 11 could help.
Right.
Because it forces the IRS to
Collection
stop.
officer, when he's dealing with the client himself, the client doesn't have representation, says, fill out this form and give me a list of your accounts receivable. And the taxpayer goes and gives him the list of the accounts receivable. Then he goes and he levies on the receivables.
Right.
Tax collection officer says to Jeff, give us a 433B and A on the company and give me a list of receivables. Jeff goes and gives him a list of receivables, and we've redacted out the name of all the companies. All we're showing them is they have receivables, so we're saying we have money coming in to pay, we're still solvent, but we're not going to give you the names of the accounts.
Tricky.
Collection officer says, well, I want the names of the accounts.
No.
Sorry. Now, you don't get into a fight with him.
Yeah.
Change the subject. Come up with something else. We'll get that to you. Oh, we'll get it to you. Oh, I forgot again. I can't believe I forgot. They know what you're doing, but you're not going to give them the information. You don't give them the means to destroy you.
Right.
So, you get them into a payment plan. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
And as long as you stay compliant, it's a good thing. They still may assess Jack individually on the trust fund.
They likely will. And then what they do is they call it a mirrored account. It's basically in duplicate. And it freaks clients out because they think they have double liability because it shows up twice. They have one liability, and when you pay one down, if you could use the company to pay the money, then your trust fund liability goes down by their respective portion as well. So they reduce in tandem.
So the thing is, payroll tax problems are solvable. You want to address them, and you don't want them to continue to grow, because if they grow remember,
fast.
it's personal liability as well on that trust fund. That's a big issue. All right, now let's shift over to the personal side.
Jack's got a lot of problems, and so does Sarah. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about their solution.
Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
A lifetime of hard work. If you don't have the right plan in place, you can lose your home, your savings, and more. And you didn't come this far to lose everything. Samasco Law wants you to know that laws are changing. Today, the average cost of nursing home care is $85,000 a year. With proper planning, we can help protect your life savings and get you the Medicaid nursing home benefits you deserve.
How much can you afford to lose? Call Samasco Law today.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. So I remind our viewers to listen to us for Law and Reality Live on the Praise Network every Tuesday, 10 o'clock a.m., Saturdays, 7 o'clock a.m., and on KISS 105.9, Sundays, 7 o'clock a.m. Be sure and go to the website. You can sign up for free newsletters and information just on the front page. Pop in your name, email address, and we'll keep you posted on new events as they come up. We have a webinar coming up on Wednesday, December 9th, 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. There's no better gift than being debt-free. We're going to go through all the methods that we use to eliminate debt. Solutions outside of bankruptcy using debt resolution on credit cards, also using Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 bankruptcy. You need to remember, your goal is to put yourself in a position where you're debt-free, not paying interest, so that your excess income starts going into the bank for savings rather than going to MasterCard and Visa. We'll have a special segment on small businesses facing debt. Jeff Linden will also talk about tax problems. Attendees get a free copy of my book, Dump Your Debt. Sign up at thavgross.com or lawandreality.com. Also remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. We're doing them via teleconference, phone conference, or in office with proper social distancing. All you have to do is go to our website, lawandreality.com, click on one of the topics that you want to consult, or you can always just call the office at 888-235-HELP and come in and we'll schedule you for an appointment. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat Samasco, disability issues with Jeff Kirshner, criminal law issues with Scott Weinberg. Just sign up at lawandreality.com or call 888-235-HELP. Also, go on the website. You get free reports. Brand new, Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by myself and Jeff Linden, How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure, Business Information, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Michigan, and The Retiree's Guide to Social Security from Pat Samasco. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV Gross, Samasco Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
COVID-19 presents a fight for our personal and business financial survival. You have to make choices. Cash is critical. Do you tap your retirement, home equity line, or run up the credit cards? You need the right plan to avoid being wiped out, and you need it now. You can't rely on the government or banks. Call us. We're the experts in financial crisis. We are here for you and your business in the Great Recession, and we're here for you now. We will create a plan and get through this together. THAV Gross will solve your problem.
Okay, so right where we left off. Now we're back to Jack and Sarah. Remember earlier on in the show I said, are income taxes dischargeable in bankruptcy?
And I started with yes and no. It depends on the type of income tax and how old it is. So let's start off with all income tax in general is dischargeable in bankruptcy, period.
If
you start off with, did it come due more than 3 years ago? Have the tax returns been filed for at least 2 years? Have they been assessed in the last 8 months? If you start there, if the taxes came due more than 3 years ago, they filed them for at least 2 years, and they haven't been assessed in the last 8 months, then in principle, the taxes are dischargeable.
except for one.
Well, subject to, did they commit a fraud? Or
Two.
is the tax return an SFR, otherwise known as a substitute for return?
What were you saying except for one?
The SFR. I forgot about the fraud.
And there's actually a number of additional exceptions to the rule, but if you start off with that basic premise, that hits about 99% of the tax returns.
We did substitute for return really quickly. Let's put it in perspective. You don't file your tax return, which we've talked about many times on the show.
The government will file one for you.
Eventually they will, and they'll take the information that they have from 1099s, W-2s, and so forth, and they'll create a return for you and then assess you. That isn't the same as you filing your own return. It's called an SFR, substitute for a return, and it doesn't start the clock or make you eligible to discharge the taxes in
Actually, a
bankruptcy.
substitute for return even if you subsequently file your return,
You're still screwed.
still
is
can't.
never dischargeable in bankruptcy because the tax return that you filed doesn't serve a tax purpose because you were already taxed by the government in their return.
That's what the cases say.
That is.
So just to hit that point where we've talked about it on other shows, not filing your return subjects
Bad.
you to a
Very bad.
25% penalty in the first 5 months that you don't pay. And it takes away your ability to file a bankruptcy to discharge the taxes. It is a really improper, foolish, terrible mistake to make.
And in this case, with Jack and Sarah, their 2015 and 2016 income tax returns, which they filed on time, are now dischargeable because 3 years went by, 2 years went by, and 240 days didn't happen. In other words, they meet all the parameters to discharge the 15 and 16. They don't meet the parameters to discharge 19 because the tax isn't at least 3 years old in the first place.
And they're not going to meet it for 20 either because they haven't paid any estimates.
Now,
in.
an interesting
So they're going to
little-
have a tax liability.
An interesting side note on this dischargeability of income taxes. What I'm talking about is what happens within the Sixth Circuit right now. In other circuits, the 3-year rule applies, but if you didn't file your tax returns on time, you might not be able to discharge your taxes at all, regardless.
So
So
the
it depends
Sixth
on where you
Circuit,
live.
but the Sixth Circuit is a federal circuit that encompasses 5 states.
Right.
Right.
Which
Well, but
includes
most
Michigan.
people don't necessarily know that. Michigan.
Yeah, but let's kind of, we're down to a minute and a half left on the show, basically. So what are you going to do for Jack and Sarah for 19 and 20 for their taxes?
Well, we're going to look
You
at.
can discharge the other ones in bankruptcy.
We might. It might make sense to. It might not.
We're going to look at collection alternatives. For them, there's 3. There's going to be. We're going to look at whether or not they're eligible for an offer in compromise to settle their debt for less than they owe. We're going to look at whether or not they can't afford to make any payments, so there'll be what's called currently not collectible status, and we're going to look at installment payment plan options.
All right, so they've got 3 alternatives to address their obligation from 19, which we know is 20,000, 20 we don't know yet, but they're still making money.
What it might make sense, though, to check out whether or not those opportunities exist before we file the bankruptcy, because the bankruptcy is only going to take care of part of the problem. And if I can push that solution, so let's say we get them into an installment payment agreement that's low enough, we can push that down the road
Wait
and
till we
get to the
get
point
to
where
3
19
years
and
beyond.
20 might be dischargeable also.
So that the good point. That's where planning is important, and that's where the discipline of not just focusing on bankruptcy and just tax problem resolution separately, but when we combine forces to analyze what's in the best interest for Jack and Sarah, that's how you come up with the really creative, smart solutions to problems. So they have a tax problem. It is resolvable. You need to take action. Have a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.